So speaking of virtue signaling, it seems like all of these pop stars now are coming out and saying that they want their children to be screwed up for life. Like it's their actual goal in life to screw up their kids. So pop superstar Pink has 2 kids, Willow, who's her 6-year-old daughter, and Jameson, her 11-month-old son, who's named after some sort of alcohol, I guess. She has big dreams for them, but they don't subscribe to the idea that Willow is a girl and Jameson is a boy. Pink said, quote, "I was in a school, and the bathroom outside the kindergarten said gender neutral, anybody, and it was a drawing of many shapes. I took a picture of it and I wrote progress. I thought that was awesome. I love that kids are having this conversation. Yes, there's nothing better for small children than being confused as to whether they're a boy or a girl, and they can switch randomly and arbitrarily between them. That's not linked with higher suicide attempt rates. It's not linked with depression. It's not linked with any of that stuff. Gender confusion is really good for kids. It's fantastic for kids. If you're insane, part of what your job is to do as parents is to look at what your kids are and then attempt to make their life easier by having them develop in psychologically healthy ways. You know, the same people who will say that we need to teach men not to rape and that men inherently have a tendency toward rape will say that manhood doesn't even exist and a man can be a woman. That's an insane proposition. Okay, the whole point is that if you want men to be good, you have to acknowledge the nature of men, and then you have to teach men to be gentlemen. That comes along with a positive masculinity. The same thing is true among women. There is such a thing as positive femininity. Okay, there's such a thing as toxic femininity too, I think, if we're going to talk about toxicity. Toxic just meaning bad behavior among men or bad behavior among women. To suggest that all women are angels and all men are devils is not the case. Okay, the whole point of civilizing your children is to bring them up to be the best man or woman they can be. If they suffer from gender confusion issues, that's something you have to deal with. But to impose gender confusion on your child because you're so progressive is just pathetic and sick. Pink is enthused that Willow told her she wants to marry an African woman when she grows up. Her kid is 6. Her kid is 6. She's enthused about that. Like, her kid doesn't even know what she's talking about. Like, her kid doesn't even have sexual hormones running through her at this point. And you're already talking like, oh yeah, that's good. If you want to be a lesbian, just go for it. She's a 6-year-old. What the hell's wrong with you? So we are a very labelless household. Last week, Willow told me she's going to marry an African woman. Why not an Asian woman? Is her 6-year-old a racist? And I was like, great, can you teach me how to make African food? And she's like, sure, Mama. And we are going to live with you while our house is getting ready. I was like, what the F? Who are you? Who is paying for this, by the way? And she says, this is just great. And it is worth noting, as Hank Berrien does over at Daily Wire, that after spending her prepubescent years using ecstasy crystal meth and acid, she came close to overdosing this Pink in a club when she was 15. She apparently thinks she was screwed up then, but she's much better now, saying, I went off the rails before all of this. I got my bleep out of the way early before anyone knew who I was. Well, why weren't you just exploring your boundaries? Why was that a problem? Why couldn't you just be who you want to be? You want to do crystal meth when you're 15? That's fine. And if you want to be a boy when you're a girl at 3, what's the problem? Self-definition, subjectivism. That's the ticket. And now she says, I'm much more mom than I am anything else. Absolutely 100%. I feel bad for her kids, honestly. Kids want lines. Kids want rules. Kids want structures. Kids want to know that there's predictability in the universe. Parents who fail to recognize this bring up bad children. And children, even if they're not bad, who are troubled and have difficulty. Children are looking for lines. They are unformed by civilization. It's why we form civilizations, to make better human beings. But the left doesn't believe that. They believe that you should be able to do whatever you want in terms of children. Like, children should be able to do whatever they want. We don't have any role in cultivating them. And then they're surprised when uncultivated human beings end up doing bad things when they grow up or end up being trouble.
What's your formal education background? So I guess a lot of people don't know what your undergraduate degree was in.
So I was at UCLA in political science and then Harvard Law School.
Okay. So you don't have, you wouldn't consider yourself an expert in sociology?
I mean, I don't consider sociology a particularly expert field, but go ahead. I think I'm able to read a sociological study.
It's a field of study, but so you're not necessarily an expert.
Yes, there are lots of fields of study.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of topics.
Let's put it this way, I know a lot less about welding than I do about sociology.
What I'm getting at is that you're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory, many of these things that you've brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory. As far as, if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about. That's a dumb argument.
What I'm trying to get at is that the fact that you get any other further education in any of these topics or any of these fields of study.
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology, no bullshit when I hear it.
And granted, that's your opinion.
Right. Because I'm here, yeah, giving it.
That would mean that you're also offering kind of an unqualified opinion on a lot of these topics.
See, again, you're just making the argument from authority. I don't think slapping a PhD from Ferris State next to your name makes you an expert in all things in the field in which you propose to speak. Okay, the fact is that either my argument's good or my argument's bad. Citing to my credentials is a really bad way of making an argument. It's like it's actually the equivalent of, it's so funny, when people do this, it's the equivalent of actually a religious person saying, citing to the Bible for an argument. I'm a very religious person, right? I mean, see this? It's the yarmulke, okay? I'm a religious person, okay? I never cite to the Bible. The reason I don't cite to the Bible is because that's an argument from authority. Okay, you may not believe the authority to which I'm citing. I don't believe the authority to which you're citing. So you're going to have to make me an argument as to what I'm saying that's wrong instead of just saying I don't have the properly enumerated degree from the institution of your choice.
I'm merely citing academia. If you haven't done any significant study or any type of educational, you haven't established yourself as a PhD or a doctorate in any of these programs, so how can you make a qualified opinion on any of these topics is my question.
Because I have read the studies and I can have an opinion on them.
And that's your opinion and mine was just stated, so. Thank you.
Yes, that was my opinion.
So, how do you say that some people don't have privilege when you basically just said that trans people aren't valid? They're not a thing. They're just girls pretending to be boys or boys pretending to be girls.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Oh, someone's excited. Okay.
It's biological, but gender is a completely different thing.
No, gender is not disconnected from sex. So.
It's not completely disconnected, but it's still a cultural thing. It's still from society. It's
Okay. No, it is not in the mind, okay? You're not a man if you think you're a man. And I didn't say pretending, or if I did, I shouldn't have said pretending. Let me amend.
said playing.
Okay, I said a boy who thinks he's a girl. That's the usual phraseology I use. Not playing. I usually say a boy who thinks he's a girl or a girl who thinks he's a boy, which is technically what we're talking about here. As far as the actual psychological issues at play, it used to be called gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. Now they call it gender dysphoria. The idea that sex or gender are malleable is not true, okay? And I'm not denying your humanity if you're a transgender person. I am saying that you are not the sex to which you claim to be. You're still a human being, and you're a human being with an issue that I wish you Godspeed in dealing with in whatever way you see fit. But if you are going to dictate to me that I'm supposed to pretend that men are women and women are men, no. My answer is no. I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of what you are.
Okay, but you're still saying these kids should not be accepted because they don't really fit in either place? They can't just
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout.
Where's that written though? Okay.
In the name Boy Scouts. Because this is a very because for all of human history, boy meant boy and girl meant girl. Boy did not mean girl. And if I call you a moose, are you suddenly a moose? Okay, if I redefine our terms. No, yes, that's right. Men and women are a completely different thing. This is true. Have you ever met a man or a woman? They're completely different.
You can't just say you're a cat. It's not a thing. It's genders. It's not saying you're.
Okay, why is that? I don't understand. Why? Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are. Okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably a bit naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
Because it.
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
It's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender. You can't magically change your gender. You can't magically change your sex. You can't magically change your age.
You can still legally change it. People recognize.
You can't legally change your age, by the way.
Obviously, you can change your name, you can change your sex, you can change your identity.
Just because you can do things legally doesn't mean that they are correct biologically. You could do lots of things in the past that were incorrect biologically and correct legally. For a long period of time in the United States, sterilization of the mentally ill took place. That didn't make it okay. Skinner versus Oklahoma. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote the decision.
Right. I still don't understand why you're accepting these children that are.
It's not a matter of open-minded and accepting. I want them to get treatment that they see fit, but that's not involving me. The idea behind the transgender movement as a civil rights movement is the idea that all of their problems would just go away if I would pretend that they were the sex to which they claim membership. That's nonsense. The transgender suicide rate is 40%. It is 40%. And according to the Anderson School at UCLA, it makes no difference. There's a study that came out last year. It makes no difference, virtually no difference, statistically speaking, as to whether people recognize you as a transgender person or not, which suggests there's a very high comorbidity between transgenderism, whatever that mental state may be, and suicidality. That has nothing to do with how society treats you.
Do you think it could be because of they're bullied at school?
No, I don't think that. I do not think that the discrepancy. I do not think the discrepancy. First of all, I'm against bullying of any sort. Okay, the idea that somebody would beat somebody up is terrible. Okay, as somebody who's viciously bullied in high school, I'm not a fan of bullying. But the idea that the normal suicide rate across the United States is 4%. The suicide rate in the transgender community is 40%. The idea that 36% more transgender people are committing suicide because people are mean to them is ridiculous. It's not true, and it's not backed by any science that anyone can cite. It is pure conjecture. In fact, it's not even true that bullying causes suicide, according to a lot of studies. For example, in the black community, where the idea is supposedly that America is a racist society, blacks are bullied a lot. Okay, in the black community has significantly lower suicide rates than in the white community. In fact, in third world countries, the suicide rate is significantly lower than in first world countries. Suicide actually seems to be a privilege of the upper classes, if you actually look at it from a financial perspective. So the idea that suicidality is directly a result of people like me saying, no, men are not women and women are not men, it's not true. It's also...
So you think it doesn't impact their identity at all, or their depression, or how they feel about themselves?
I think the idea that you're going to sacrifice the entire society's proper definition of sex because you think that there is in legal terms, somebody with an eggshell skull, meaning that somebody who has a pre-existing condition that makes them more susceptible to criticism, that is not a way to run a society. You can't sacrifice truth because some people are going to actually suffer because of the truth. Plus, there's no evidence whatsoever that the suicide rate would go down in the transgender community in any marked way if people just started pretending that men were women and women were men. We're trying that experiment now. We'll find out whether it works. So far, no evidence.
Have you talked to a group of trans people at all instead of this group of, like, white people?
I'm more than happy to talk to a group of any